Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. The pasta was overcooked. I knew because she hadn't touched hers. And because I had cooked it. Again, hoping a hot meal might warm up the ice that had taken over our apartment. She was staring at her glass of wine like it had something to say. I had stopped trying to speak. Every word I said these past few weeks felt like pushing against a locked door, and my hands were bruised from trying. So I just sat there, across from her, chewing through silence. Then she dropped her fork. Not angrily, just deliberately, like a sound effect, a cue for the scene to change. And without lifting her eyes, she said it. I think we should take a break. Just like that. Not even a pause. Not even a fake apology. No, this is hard for me. No, I still care about you. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. But I did. I sat there like an idiot, still holding my fork midair. I didn't ask why. I already knew the shape of the answer, even if I didn't know the words. She was done with me, and she didn't have the decency to say it clean. So she handed me the dirty work, with a polite tone and a glass of Merlot. I wish I could say I stood up, walked out like a man with dignity. I didn't. I asked her, "Is there someone else?" She sighed like I was being dramatic. "No, I just need space." "That's not a crime, Dorian." No, it wasn't a crime, but it felt like being sentenced anyway. She needed space, so I gave her the universe. I left everything, my keys, my favorite hoodie, the mug I always used for tea. I walked out without a plan. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say a word. She didn't chase me. But that's not the part that hurts. It's what she did after I left that broke me in ways I still don't understand. The things I found out. The photos. The smirks. The lies disguised as freedom. This wasn't a break. It was betrayal with lipstick and clean hands. So I vanished. And now, months later, she wants me back. But I'm not the same man she let go. And this time, I won't be the one begging. I didn't go far that night. Just far enough to make sure I wouldn't bump into her in the grocery store or catch a glimpse of her car turning onto our street. I booked a room at a roadside motel with flickering lights and thin walls. Honestly, it felt like the perfect metaphor for what our marriage had become. I spent the first 2 nights pacing. Not sleeping. Not eating. Just thinking. Obsessing. Replaying every moment from the last 6 months. Searching for the red flags I missed. But what hurt the most wasn't the break she asked for. It was realizing that she had already taken it long before she said the words. She had emotionally packed up and moved on while I was still cooking her favorite meals, still doing the laundry, still kissing her forehead when she was half asleep on the couch. On the 3rd night, I decided to check her social media. I shouldn't have. I know. But when you're left in the dark, you start looking for light in the wrong places. I didn't find light. I found fire. She had posted a story. One of those blurry, moody photos with a song playing in the background. But the worst part wasn't the aesthetic sadness she was performing. It was the reflection in the glass behind her. A man's arm. Bare. Tattooed. Definitely not mine. I stared at it like it would disappear if I blinked enough times. But it didn't. I didn't confront her. I didn't text. I didn't scream. I just felt everything collapse inside me. All the doubt she had planted with "I just need space" suddenly made sense. That arm told the truth louder than her lips ever did. So I deleted all our pictures from my phone. Every photo. Every saved message. Even the voicemail I kept where she said, "I'll love you forever, Dorian. No matter what." No matter what. Huh? I spent the next few weeks in ghost mode. No calls, no updates, no explanation to anyone. I even ignored my best friend Trevor when he tried to drag me out of the hole I'd sunk into. I didn't want to talk. I wanted to disappear. And that's when it started. First, it was a missed call. Then another. Then a message. "Hey, can we talk?" Then, "I didn't mean for this to happen like this." I didn't reply. That silence must have scared her, because by week 3, she was calling my mom, asking if I was okay. Showing up at my brother's place, hoping I was hiding there. She had made her choice, and now she wanted a second chance. But what she didn't know was, I wasn't the man who left that night anymore. I wasn't angry. I wasn't broken. I was just Done. The break she wanted. It became the door I never planned to open again. And the next time she saw me, I wasn't alone. It was a rainy Saturday when she showed up. I wasn't expecting anyone, let alone her. I had just finished making breakfast, nothing fancy, just scrambled eggs and burnt toast. When the knock came, first I ignored it. Most people text before coming over. But it came again, this time firmer, with that strange rhythm that always made my stomach drop. It was her. I didn't move. I stood there in the kitchen, holding a chipped coffee mug, staring at the door like it was about to speak. Part of me thought about hiding. The other part, the one that had spent weeks rebuilding whatever was left of me, walked straight to the handle and opened it. She was drenched, hoodie over her head, mascara slightly smudged, like she had driven there in a panic. She blinked at me like she expected me to smile, or fall into her arms, or say something soft. But I didn't. I just waited. "Can I come in?" she asked, shivering a little. Before I could respond, a voice called from behind me. "Hey, you didn't burn the second batch, did you?" Her eyes snapped past me. Then everything changed. You know that sound your heart makes when it drops? I swear I heard it in her chest. Because standing there, barefoot in one of my old flannels, was Juniper. No, she's not my new girlfriend. She's my coworker. We'd been working on a late-stage project together. And she crashed on my couch the night before because we pulled an all-nighter revising layouts for a client. But Leslie didn't know that. And I didn't owe her an explanation. "Wow," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "You didn't waste any time, huh?" I didn't bother correcting her. I let the silence grow roots between us. "Is this why you've been ignoring me?" she snapped. "You're already with someone else?" I leaned on the doorframe and said, as calmly as I could, "You asked for space. I gave it to you. And now you're mad that I used it?" She laughed bitterly, like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You disappeared, Dorian. You just vanished." "No," I replied. "I respected your decision. You wanted a break, and I took one." She stood there, speechless, like the storm outside had moved into her head. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her choices had finally started pressing down. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Then she said it, something I never expected. "I made a mistake, but it was too late." I didn't slam the door in her face. I didn't yell. I simply nodded and said, "Me too." Then I closed it. Not because of Juniper. Not because I wanted revenge. But because in that moment, I realized I didn't need Leslie's apology. I needed myself back. And finally, I had him. I didn't hear from her for about a week after that doorstep scene. I thought maybe that would be it, that she'd finally give up, let it die, stop trying to patch a boat she'd already drilled holes in. But instead of texts or calls, she switched tactics. Paper. Real paper. As if handwriting the damage made it more sincere. The first envelope came folded neatly in my mailbox. No return address. Just my name written in that sharp, slanted style she used whenever she wanted something. I stared at it for a long time before opening it, half hoping it was closure, half expecting manipulation. Inside was a 2-page letter. It wasn't some grand apology, it was a list. A list of everything she missed about me. The way I overcooked pasta and still called it gourmet. The way I snored lightly when I was too tired to finish my tea. The way I used to touch her back in passing like a reflex. She didn't say, "I'm sorry" once. Just, "I miss." I didn't respond. Then came the second one 2 days later. This time, she wrote about the night she asked for the break. She admitted she already had someone waiting in the wings. His name was Cal. Someone from her gym. She said she thought it would be a harmless distraction, just space to breathe. But it had turned into something else. She claimed she realized, too late, that Cal wasn't who she wanted. That he was loud, careless, temporary. She said being with him made her feel hollow, and that the emptiness reminded her of what she had left behind. I'll be honest, that one made my chest tighten. But not because I missed her. It was because I could finally see the pattern. She wasn't mourning me. She was mourning her comfort, her certainty, the way I used to orbit around her, absorbing every storm. Without me, her chaos didn't feel exciting, It just felt lonely. The third letter hit different. Came in the middle of the night. Slipped under my door. I was still up, working on a presentation, and I saw the shadow move outside the window. She must have parked around the corner. Inside was a photo. It was us. From 3 years ago, taken by a stranger on a beach in Oregon. We'd gone on a spontaneous trip after a huge fight and ended up laughing ourselves breathless in the sand. A random guy had offered to take our picture. I'd forgotten it even existed. She wrote 2 words on the back. We were real. And for the first time in months I cried. But not for her. I cried for the man in that photo. The one who still believed love could survive 1,000 paper cuts. The one who thought loyalty was enough. The next morning, I gathered the letters, tied them together with twine, and dropped them in the trash. Not out of anger, but because I didn't want my healing tied to someone else's regret. And the moment I closed that lid, I felt it: relief. Not revenge. Not justice. Just peace. But I should have known better. That wasn't the end of it. Not by a long shot. Because the next time I heard from her, it wasn't a letter. It was a voicemail from a hospital. And her voice sounded like she had just shattered into 1,000 pieces. It was just past midnight when my phone lit up. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out, assuming it was another spam call or a drunk dial. But something about the hour and the gut punch I felt just seeing it made me answer. I didn't speak at first. Just held the phone to my ear and listened. Is this Dorian Whitmore? The voice asked. Yes. This is County Medical. We have a patient here who listed you as an emergency contact. My heart dropped into my stomach. Leslie Marlowe, the voice continued. She's conscious now, but disoriented. She's been asking for you. I sat on the edge of my bed, silent. My throat felt like it had been filled with gravel. Why would she put me down as her contact? Why not her mother? One of her friends? Or that guy, Cal? Is she okay? I finally asked. She's stable. She was brought in dehydrated and under extreme emotional distress, the nurse said. Paramedics found her in her car, parked off I-17. She'd been there for hours. For a moment, I didn't move. I thought about ignoring it, letting someone else handle it. But something about it, something I couldn't explain, pulled me up from bed, threw on jeans and a hoodie, and got me behind the wheel. When I got to the hospital, the air was heavy with that sterile chill only hospitals seem to have. I gave my name and was led to a quiet room at the end of the hall. And there she was, Leslie, pale, eyes sunken, lips chapped. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. She saw me and broke. No words, just tears. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I should step closer or walk away. She whispered. I didn't know who else to call. I didn't say anything. I just pulled the chair closer and sat down. What followed was a rambling storm of confessions. She told me she hadn't been eating, hadn't been sleeping. Said the nights were the worst. Said she hears my voice sometimes in her dreams. Calm, forgiving, and then wakes up to silence. And then, the most unexpected thing. She told me about Cal. He had dumped her 2 weeks ago. Apparently, she had confessed to him that she still loved me. That she regretted everything. He laughed. Told her she was broken and not his problem anymore. And just like that, the guy she'd replaced me with walked out. She spiraled. Drove around for hours. Parked on an overpass and thought about what it would be like to just disappear. That's when someone called it in. She looked up at me through her tears and said, I was wrong about everything, Dorian. I thought I needed freedom. But it turns out I needed you. I wanted to believe her, but I'd heard versions of this before. Tears that sounded like apologies but were really just fear of consequences. Still, a small, broken part of me felt bad. Not for her decisions, but for how hollow she looked. I sat with her until the nurses came to check her vitals. She squeezed my hand like she was afraid I'd vanish the second she blinked. When I finally left, she whispered, Will you come back tomorrow? I looked at her, really looked, and something inside me went still. I don't know, I said, because the truth was, that moment wasn't about forgiveness. It wasn't about starting over. It was about closure. and I didn't know if she was ready to let go. But I was getting close. 2 days passed. I didn't go back to the hospital. I thought about it. I really did, but every time I reached for my keys, something inside me stopped. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was common sense finally waking up. Or maybe I just couldn't handle another round of being the emotional crutch for someone who broke me when I was most vulnerable. But just as I was starting to feel like the silence might finally settle, there was a knock on my door. Not again, I thought. But this time it wasn't a hesitant knock. It was steady, deliberate, like whoever was on the other side knew I was home. I peeked through the window, and there she was, Leslie. Pale, thinner than before, but wearing clean clothes and standing upright. But she wasn't alone. Beside her stood a little girl, maybe 5 years old, blonde curls, green eyes that mirrored mine in a way that made my stomach twist. She clung to Leslie's hand but looked at me with that curious tilt kids have when they're trying to place a stranger. "Can we talk?" Leslie asked. Her voice was soft, but not broken. Not like in the hospital. She sounded collected. Too collected. I opened the door halfway. "What's going on?" I asked, already feeling heat rise in my chest. She motioned to the girl. "This is Ava." I didn't say anything. Couldn't. My heart was pounding in my ears. "She's not mine," Leslie said quickly, catching the storm on my face. "She's my niece. My sister passed a few months ago. I've been watching her since. And I didn't know who else to trust." I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "So you brought a child to my house to what? Guilt me into something? What is this?" She looked like she wanted to be offended, but she swallowed it. "No, I brought her because she's been asking questions. About family. About safety. And the truth is, I have none of that left. My parents are gone. My sister's gone. And she looked down. I threw away the one person who ever gave a damn." I glanced at Ava. She was sitting on the porch steps now, humming to herself, playing with a loose string from her sweater. "I'm not here to beg you to take me back," Leslie continued. "I know I ruined that chance, but I thought maybe you could help me give her something stable, even if it's just a friend, or a visit, someone she can rely on." It was such a twisted, surreal moment. This woman who had shattered my trust was now standing in front of me, asking for my stability. Not for her, but for a little girl caught in the wreckage of her life. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to hug the kid. I wanted to slam the door. I wanted to be better than I was. I wanted to walk away. Instead, I just said, "I need time." And she nodded. "I understand." She reached into her bag and handed me a folder. "These are guardianship papers. I'm not asking you to sign them. I'm asking you to read them." Then she took Ava's hand, whispered something in her ear, and walked away. I stood there long after they were gone. The folder was heavy in my hands. Not just because of the paper, but because for the first time in months the past wasn't the heaviest thing pressing on me. The future was. I stared at the folder for hours. I didn't open it right away. It sat on my kitchen table like it was ticking. I couldn't explain it, but something about the way she handed it to me, the calculated calm, the way she never broke eye contact, felt off, like there was more inside than just legal jargon and desperation. So I waited. I poured a glass of water. Paced. Saturday. Stood. I even called Trevor but hung up before he could answer. I wanted advice, but I didn't want to be talked out of whatever gut feeling had started crawling up my spine. When I finally opened the folder, I expected to find paperwork detailing temporary guardianship for Ava, emergency contacts, medical release forms, maybe some letters from the court. And it was all there. But that wasn't what stopped me. It was the page buried in the middle. A single sheet, attached to nothing else. An old medical record from 3 years ago. At the top, my name. Dorian Whitmore, genetic paternity test results. I felt the room tilt. Below that, another name. Ava Marlowe. Percentage of match. 99. 998%. I dropped the page. My breath hitched in my throat, the air thick like it had turned to smoke. I scrambled to pick it up, scanning the date. March 12th. That was right around the time Leslie took a sudden solo trip to visit her sister. She claimed she needed to reset her mind, unplug, go hiking. I had no idea she was taking my DNA with her. And now this little girl wasn't her niece. She was ours. I tried to find logic in the chaos to explain away the impossible. Maybe it was a typo. Maybe Leslie had forged it. But why? Why would she hand it to me now after everything? And then it hit me. She hadn't meant to include this page. It must have been tucked in by accident when she gathered the documents. I stood in the middle of my kitchen, holding a truth I never asked for. A truth she had buried beneath lies and half-confessions. I thought the betrayal was over. I thought I had seen every angle of her deceit. But this was an entirely new level. She hadn't just cheated. She had hidden a child from me, my child, for years. And now she was at my door, smiling softly, acting like she was just looking for stability for someone else's kid. She had dangled the idea of guardianship like a peace offering, when really it was her last card to play. Because Leslie didn't just want help. She wanted out. She wanted me to take in a child she had raised in silence, because it was easier than admitting the full weight of what she had done. And if I hadn't opened that folder, I would have never known. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I watched the clock tick past 2, 3, then 4 a.m., trying to remember every moment she could have told me, every sign I missed, every time she said she wasn't ready for kids. It had all been a lie, a performance. I wasn't angry. I was wrecked. But deep under the wreckage, something else stirred. Not rage, not revenge, responsibility. Because now there was a little girl out there who looked like me, and the woman who broke me once was about to do it again, by walking away from both of us. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I showed up at her apartment the next evening, folder in hand, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. I wasn't there to scream. I wasn't even sure if I was there to demand answers. I just needed to see her when I said the one thing I'd been holding on to all night. Why didn't you tell me she was mine? She froze in the doorway like I had punched the air out of her lungs. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She looked at the folder in my hand. She knew. The moment she saw it, her expression collapsed. I didn't mean for you to find that, she whispered. That much is clear, I said, doing everything I could not to fall apart. But you gave me that folder. You wanted me to sign away rights to a little girl who's my daughter. She sat down slowly on the couch like her legs couldn't hold her up anymore. Her voice cracked. I found out after I left, and I was too ashamed to tell you. I thought I could raise her alone. I didn't want her to grow up around tension. I thought maybe keeping her from you was protecting her. No, I said. You were protecting yourself. We sat in silence. Ava was at daycare, she said. It gave us time to talk. She told me everything. That she got the test done when Ava was a baby. Convinced herself I didn't need to know. That her sister had helped raise her for the first few years. That when her sister died, the weight of her secrets started suffocating her. And then came the part one didn't expect. I don't want to run anymore, she said, wiping her eyes. You can hate me. You have every right to. But Ava deserves better than me pretending forever. I nodded slowly. You're right. She deserves better. But I'm not going to fight you. Not legally. Not emotionally. I'm not here to punish you. I just want to know my daughter. Her eyes widened. She looked stunned, like she expected me to lash out or walk away forever. But I was done being angry. There was a little girl who had nothing to do with the pain that created her. A girl who had no idea her real father had been lied to for years. And that wasn't her fault. It was ours. So we made a plan. Not to get back together. Not to erase the past. But to raise Ava the right way from that moment forward. We started with a simple weekend visit. Then one day a week. Then holidays. Ava took to me fast. I was awkward at first. Burned grilled cheese. Tripped over her toys. But every time she looked at me with those wide green eyes, something in me softened. And one day, she called me Dad. Not because Leslie told her to, but because she felt it. We're not a couple. We're not perfect, but we're honest now. And that's something we never had before. And every time Ava runs into my arms after school, I realize maybe some endings aren't meant to be clean. Some are meant to bloom into something better. That's the end of this story, but for me and Ava, it's just the beginning. Let us know in the comments. What moment from this story hit you hardest? Was it the letters? The hospital call? The test result? We'd love to hear your take. And don't forget to subscribe for more unforgettable stories here on Reddit Confessions.